a real truck looks like. Okay? Unlock. What do we have under the hood? Straight up. Hold that. There you go. All right. Lift the hood. Uh-huh.
That's a heavy, right?
On a real truck it is. Okay? So this here is a relatively new engine. Okay? They're pack cars. They, well, I guess maybe 10 years or so they started. They started out with Peterbilt. Peterbilt brought them out just to, that's the first time that I saw them. Anyways, so yeah, I've never ever driven a pack car. So I am going to show you guys how to do this on an engine that I'm not even familiar with. All right?
That's a good idea.
All right. So what we have here is a bunch of belts and pulleys and lines. Where to start? Where would you start doing a pre-trip when you open the hood? Right? What I do is develop a routine. Doesn't matter which engine, right? Because there's going to be times where all of a sudden your truck's broken down and they're going to give you a spare truck. Okay? Really? They're all the same. Just maybe parts might be in a different location. Okay? So let's find them and we'll find them together. Where do I start? Always at the top. Okay? So when I'm looking up at the top, what am I looking for? Anything that's supposed to be connected, make sure it is connected. Clamps. This part here is called air to air. Okay? More air, more power. Right? Air goes into the intake. Okay? What do we have here? Let's read it. Fill, full. Well, that tells me it's probably power steering. Right? Full when it's hot, full when it's cold. Different rating. Okay? What else do we got? Where's that yellow dipstick? There it is. So that tells me that it's going to be the oil. Obviously, I'm not going to get an accurate reading because, well, all of that engine, or all of that oil when I started the engine, pulls up to the top end, right? So, let's check it. We're going to pull it out. And see what we got. See what I mean? Now, the color, the discoloration is always going to be the same, okay? As soon as you put clean oil into an engine, a diesel engine, it blackens almost immediately, okay? So what else are we going to look for? I'm so used to being the guy that doesn't get dirty. All right, what do we have here? What's this part? There we go. So the compressor's got to be somewhere near it, right? Because the compressor for the air brake system is run off belts and pulleys. So if we know this is the alternator, this here must be our compressor. Near the compressor is going to be what? What governs the amount of air that goes in and out of our truck? Governor. Try to give you the answer. Okay? So the governor is usually smaller and it will be somewhere in and around there, and I'm pretty sure I can see it kind of tucked underneath the frame. Okay? So now I'm working my way down. What else is important? Right? So as I'm checking the tension, should be tight, not overly tight where it doesn't move, okay? It should have a small amount of play in it. But what I'm also looking for is any types of stress, okay? If I see stress in it, well, that tells me that it's getting worn out and it's probably going to be due for replacement, okay? So now, everything else seems to be in order. All my air lines and everything, they're all attached, okay? So we're halfway there. Steering column, right? Remember that 10 degrees? Well, like I said, I'm old school. Let's check it outside of the truck. Tight, right? Yes, it's a part of it, yeah. ABS? No, not ABS, okay? ABS is more of an electronic thing, okay? This is for the actual air brake system in the truck, okay? So here, again, just give it a pull, give it a little twist. That's all I need to do, okay? Here, what's this? Fuel, okay? Fuel filter, water separator, whatever you want to call it, okay? So now we're going to work our way to the frame. I can see, one, there's no leaks underneath, well lubricated, okay? I'm going to check. This is usually one of the first signs when a power steering pump goes. You'll start seeing it leaking from in here, okay? And it's an O-ring type gasket in there. Chances are it's starting to fail, blah, 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 okay? So now down to the frame. I can see they're all attached. This part of the frame looks good. So now I'm going to move on to the fasteners, okay? So is this thing properly fastened to the frame? Absolutely. Leaf springs, okay? So which one's my main leaf spring? Top one, right? See how the bottom one's shortened? Okay? So that would be the secondary. So if I saw that the secondary happened to be cracked or broken, that's my minor defect, okay? Main defect or major defect would be if the main leaf spring, more than one leaf spring in any spring assembly is cracked or broken, or the leaf spring is missing, shifted out of place, or rubbing up against any other component of the vehicle. I don't see any signs of that here, okay? So now, back to the fasteners. Here's your U-bolts. Okay, see how they actually fasten to the axle? Okay, so now the rest of the steering components, okay? This is where you'll find the ABS, okay? One of these lines that are attached inside, that's where it'll be, okay? That's an electronic thing, okay? So now, inside the wheel, I already know that it's a drum brake. You know how I can tell? One, the position of the actual brake chamber itself. Two, it has that exposed push rod, right? Yeah. And that's without even looking inside the wheel yet, okay? So now, when I'm looking inside the wheel, damn dust shields. Hate them. I'm a big fan of actually being able to see the brake components themselves, okay? So even though I have a dust shield, what I'm gonna look for at that point is any type of residue inside the wheel, okay? And the wheel, what I'm gonna look for, oil, more than anything on a steer axle. Why? Because it's lubricated with oil, okay? Never grease on a steer axle. You'll find them on a trailer or a drive tire. Trailers, most likely grease pack. I'll take you guys over to a trailer and I'll show you the difference between if they have them or not, okay? So now, inside the wheel looks good. So now I'm gonna check inside tire. What am I looking for? I'm gonna look for exposed cords or any type of damage. The damages, weather checking, bulges, okay? So if you're driving along, you hit a large stone, rock, something like that, it kind of jeopardizes the steel belt inside, and what'll end up happening, it'll literally bulge. It's like the tire's blowing a bubble, okay? It's common, okay? So now tread. What's the tread depth on a steer tire?
1.3.
Dot, dot, dot. I'll give you a third shot at it. Third shot. There's 3.
1.3.
No, 3.
Only 3?
3 millimeters. That's the minimum, okay? If it gets below 3 millimeters, then it becomes a major defect. 1.5 for the drive tires, 1.5 for steer tires, okay?
Only 3 mm.
This one.
Sir, if this
Yes, inside,
going
but
below
on 2 adjacent treads. So by adjacent, I mean side by side. So it can't be this and this, or this and this, okay? It has to be this tread and this tread. So if these two were below 3 millimeters, then it becomes a major defect. Plus, you're gonna have other issues going on with the truck because, well, that side's wearing down faster than the outside, right? It could be a camber issue, something along those lines, okay? So we can see, brand new steer tire. You can tell this is a brand new one. Look at that, right? Outside, again, check for any damages and exposed cords, okay? One of the other defects is, and this one's never ever made any sense to me, not meant for highway use. You would usually see them in a car. You know what I mean? One of those replacement donut tires. You're not gonna find one of them for a tractor trailer, okay? But that's part of the major defects. The other one is tires rubbing up against any other component of the vehicle other than a mud flat. Well, it can, but that also applies to your drive tires or trailer tires, okay? Because you have two side by each. If you blow the inside tire and it actually comes off the rim and starts rubbing up on the other tire, major defect. Mud flap, guys bend mud flaps all the time, okay? So again, take your time. Look, if it's supposed to be plugged into something, grab it, right? Check it. Take your time, nice and slow. So what? One other thing that I really need to look at, and now that I'm about to move to the other side of the truck, is checking for leaks below the engine, okay? That's a telltale sign right there. Again, it's usually something, because it's so obvious, people tend to forget it. Okay? So now that we've done this, now we're on the outside of the wheel, as you can see, solid bead in and around the tire, right? Fasteners. Like I said, I'm not doing it because I don't have my gloves on, but I would check them. And what I do is actually grind my fingers into the wheel. See the impression that it makes? Okay? So I'm not checking the fasteners so much. I am, but like I said, 10 pounds, you're still not gonna turn that wheel, okay? So now, I'm gonna show it I made an impression. What am I doing? I'm actually looking. So when I'm looking in and around the rim itself, I can see if there's any signs of stress cracks, right? Or if they weren't retorqued, maybe that they're starting to loosen off and you would see rubbing, right? Okay. And then lastly, I would be inside. That's another reason I don't like the caps, but that's where I would check the wheel seal. The wheel seal's inside here. Now, sometimes what'll end up happening, you'll see trucks when you're going down the road and you'll see oil kind of spilling out, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that they have a wheel seal leak. Inside, there's the cap, the tiniest little pinhole, okay? If that pinhole becomes plugged, that's what happens. It just can't breathe, right? So you clean out the little pinhole and you're good to go again, okay? So that's one side of the engine.
That's visible when we...
Usually it is. They're just decorative, okay? That's why truck drivers put them on there. It just looks nice, especially when you got the big long chrome caps on there. It's just for show, right?
Every time we have to hammer it to check these ones.
No.
Well, you don't have to.
Well,
But that's how the MTO does it. No, he's right. Yeah, if you wanted to, because you're going to be using a hammer to check for tire inflation, right? You might as, if you have it out, you might as well tap each stud. You'll hear ting, 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 ting. But if one goes pung, or you have a couple that go pung, has a deeper tone to it, chances are that that one's probably becoming loose, right? It's not as tight as the rest. Remember, wheels, 500 foot-pounds. The bar is probably as long as my arm is. Yeah, okay? It requires a lot of pressure to torque those things down. That would be a primer right there, yep. Yep, good call. Okay? And always make sure caps are tight as well, okay? So here we go. The other side is basically the same as the driver's side, okay? So I'm always air to air, make sure. I've seen these clamps come off and it makes a pop, okay? And all of a sudden,
Air going to the turbo?
yes, more air, right? Air to air, see? Air. It's just a bigger rad that goes to the air in the turbo, okay? More air, more power. Got it? All right, so coolant, okay? I always make sure that it's secured. Never take that for granted. I've seen them come loose, okay? Because it's a plastic reservoir, what are they attached with? Steel bolts, right? Trucks, they vibrate, they wiggle around a lot. They do eventually become loose, okay? So we've checked that. Air filter, okay, is up there. Again, this is a different setup. So how do I check the air filter? As you can see, I'll give you guys a chance. I'll wipe it down so it's nice and clean. Have a look.
एयर फिल्टर ਦਾ ਵਾ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਲਾਈਟ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਨਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਫ਼ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ
Okay, so if you see it, usually it'll have like a big green mark, right? Yellow line. That yellow line will tell you. If you ever see that yellow line get down to the red, that tells me you're due for a new air filter. Okay. So again, back to the turbo. Okay. So we have all these little lines. Those little lines. One of them, I'm not exactly sure which one it is. Again, this is a little bit of a different setup than I'm used to. But one of those lines feeds oil to the turbo. Okay? Keep it spinning freely. So again, when I'm looking around the turbo, what I'm looking for is any unusual leaks. If I see something's wet up where it shouldn't be, chances are we've got a bit of an issue. Okay? So again, now this is where your exhaust starts. Okay? Your exhaust starts at the back of the turbo. Okay? So the minor defect is an exhaust leak. Well, that's from being outside. Okay, so what happens is maybe the clamp has come loose. You can see these are all guarded with heat shields, which is really nice. Okay, and then you just follow it all the way back up the exhaust. Okay, so what happens is, again, usually the elbows are the weakest part because the metal's been stretched thin. Okay, so if you have an exhaust leak outside, those gases will enter the compartment. If it gets in the compartment, well, nap time. Okay, it'll put you to sleep. Trust me. If it wasn't for me being a smoker, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you guys right now. Swear to God. I pulled my truck over, I went to bed one night, woke up drowsy. Like, what the? Smell it inside the cab, right? That's what it was. So I was already up smoking. So put all my windows down, minus 30 outside, cranked the heat as high as it would go, and drove it to the shop. Okay, so now back to the shocks, frame, right? I don't see any signs of any damage to my frame. Filters, again, in a different location. As you can see, they use like a big 1-inch bolt, take them off, change the filters. Again, don't see any signs of any leaks underneath, right? Properly fastened to the frame. Main looks to be in good condition. I don't see any damage to the secondary. U-bolts, okay? It's more of just a visual thing as well, okay? You got fresh black paint. If I see it starting to become shiny anywhere in and around there, that's a sure sign that it is becoming loose. Okay, so now back to the axle. Brake chambers. Long stroke brake chamber. See, has a tag there. 3-inch. So that's a 24-inch
chamber size
brake chamber. Okay. Lines, again, just a quick wipe inside because it has dust shields, right? So I just want to make sure that the inside of the wheel isn't saturated in oil, okay? That would be imminent wheel hub bearing failure. Just rub inside the rim. That's it. Yep. Only because it's covered in dust shields, so I can't really actually see the brake lining, okay? So again, rim looks good. Tire tread depth. What is it? 3 millimeters.
Now everybody
That's it.
remember that now.
Drive tires?
1.3.
1.3.
1.5. Okay.
1.5.
Again, out of sidewall, no exposed cords, no exposed cords. Tread is above 3 millimeters. It's not rubbing up against any other component of the vehicle other than a mud flap. There's not meant for highway use. Okay? There's all your major defects, okay? So, now that I've done the engine compartment, right, everything's in good condition, attached where it's supposed to be, this is where I would start the truck, okay? So normally when I start the truck in the morning, air pressure is dropped right off, okay? Fluids look good. So this is where I kind of do air buildup in the governor settings, low air warning, fast. So I would start the truck, okay? And just wait for everything to start rising. When my low air warning actually turns off, then that's when I know I can get out of the truck. So when I've started the engine, before I shut the hood, I just do a quick little walk around, make sure that nothing's leaking underneath, oil lines, fuel lines, coolant lines, and then I know nothing's leaking, shut the hood, okay? We'll leave it open because I can...
What's the difference between highway tire and
Oh, when they say not meant for highway use, it's more like spare, like a spare tire that you would find on like a recreational trailer, something like that. Okay, you know the little donut tires? those tires are usually meant just to get you off the road into a safer location. But as far as a truck's concerned, you can't really do that because, well, look at the size of them. The sheer weight alone, right? So, I would imagine years ago somebody did something really stupid and tried it, so they had to put it into the Schedule 1. That's usually what happens, okay? That's how things are built, right? Somebody made a mistake, we learn from it, we're gonna make it a rule, right? And that's how we progress. Okay, now that we've checked all the components, all the filters, everything's nice and tight, nothing's leaking, start the engine, okay? Yep, everything looks good. Nothing's leaking underneath, okay? So like I said, this is where I would start the engine, make sure all my gauges are functioning properly.
अगले दी लिमिट 1.3 नहीं आती
No, अगले दी 3 mm
3 mm
पिछे दी पिछे दी
1.5
1.5
Playing with the gears. Yeah. So this truck here is an 18 speed.
नहीं
So
अपने
how I
को
can tell is by the color of the splitter. Okay? This here. Okay? That tells me it's an 18. If it's red, 13. Okay? This here is your high and low range. Down here, low, flip it up, high range. Let's go fast. Okay? The low gears, and they have 18s, is because when you're really heavy, 100,000 pounds, just get the truck rolling progressively, right? All right, so now what we do, turn the key on, just on the auxiliary position, and this is where I monitor all of my warning indicators, okay? So look at all the gauges in this thing. One, you got your battery voltage. Here's oil pressure. Obviously, it should be 0. Coolant, or water temperature, right? Tach, fuel, okay? Yeah. Speedometer, right? And remember I told you about all those extra gauges, okay? So this one, brake application, watch. See? Okay? Again, oil temperature, rear drive axle, and this tells me how much weight. Air filter, so that'll tell me you have a gauge outside. Low suspension load, so that'll tell me how much weight. And again, drive axle temperature, okay? So if my temperatures are getting up into the red on my drive axles, this truck will tell me. Okay? Now look at all the settings inside. You can lock them all, so lock all the differentials, so they kind of puts it in 4-wheel drive. Yes. So this will tell me how much weight I'm actually putting on my drive axle. Okay? This, lift axle, power transfer. Okay, so that's if I was using hydraulics, the wet line. Okay,